raw conversation.
Navigating the natural and theology, influencing people to find purpose and live with quality. We descended to Christ, just acknowledge me. The sacred scriptures tell us, throw down your nets, come and follow me. A leadership that's anointed and appointed. When leading God's people, sometimes you become disappointed. You do what you can, you do what you know. You give it to God and let it go, go, go.
Welcome to The Real with Ross. Today we have an opportunity to talk to Master Hilton Rawls III. He is a preaching phenom, and he is all over the country as a young preacher spreading the gospel. Today we get an opportunity to talk about what ministry looks like to a teenager who is uniquely working in his gift and exploring what God is doing in his life, and we are glad about it. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So just give me a little bit about your story. You are 13?
Yes.
And how long have you been in ministry now?
Well, I've been preaching for about 10 years now. I've been preaching ever since I was 4. I'm turning 14 this year.
Okay, nice. And I'm sure ministry has been unique in its own way, going through the different stages of ministry as a youth. So what does ministry mean for you as a young person in ministry?
Well, for me, being a young person in ministry has always been like a focal part of my life, you know. Growing up, my dad is a pastor, grandfather is a bishop, all of my family is ministers and singers of the gospel. So it's something that I always grew up around. Not only that, hearing voices like Martin Luther King Jr. and so many others, it inspired me. But while I enjoy doing what I do, I'm still a normal kid. At least I think I am. I love playing sports, hanging out with my family and friends. I like to eat pizza, play video games. But still, ministry is still an important part of my life, and it will continue to be.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you like to do? Like you say, you play sports. What sports do you play?
I'm on the basketball team.
Okay.
Sometimes when I'm feeling good about myself, I play football,
Okay.
soccer. I love to eat pepperoni pizza all the time.
What's your favorite pizza place?
Pizzeria Uno.
Okay. So who are your inspirations? I know your dad is a major inspiration in your life. So just tell me about some of your inspirations.
I have a lot of inspirations, actually. I'm going to just name a few. As you said, my dad, my grandfather, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Kobe Bryant, Medgar Evers. Those are only a few of my inspirations, because if I told you all of my inspirations, we'd be sitting here all day.
I get it. So how have you watched your inspirations and been empowered to do ministry? I mean, you come from a lineage of people who have been active in ministry. How has that played a role?
Well, I've gotten a lot of support, you know, from my family. You know, they're all kind of doing the same thing that I'm doing. We're all ministering and sharing. Really, one who has shown a lot of support to me is not just my father, my grandfather. Like when I have somebody like my grandfather in the room when I'm preaching somewhere, it kind of motivates me, you know, to go 10 times harder. Or if I just see my father, like if seeing him in the room, it inspires me. My parents are always supporting me and motivating me, like, to keep going and to keep pressing, even though sometimes it may get tough. I know that they always have my back and that they love me.
So how has your childhood been different because of your calling?
Well, for me, I've grown up in a house since I was born. My parents set a standard for me, you know. Since I was a little boy, they poured the scriptures into me ever since I was born. They would get on my bedside at night and they would teach me how to pray. Not only that, but, you know, I come from a house of love. Not everybody's house is full of that. My parents, you know, they monitor everything that I do. Even when I was a little boy, like, they monitor who I hang out with, what I listen to, the games that I play, the music that I hear. So they're always on my back watching me to make sure that I'm not doing anything wrong that's going to mess up, you know, my spirit, or it's going to mess up my testimony.
That's great. So given your trajectory as a child, is there anything that you would change about your childhood?
I really wouldn't change anything except for the fact that people would not be so afraid to hang out with me.
Okay.
Because, you know, growing up, even in school, like, I have a lot of friends who support what I do, but they act a little strange to me based on what I do. Like, they don't understand how to take me sometimes. They don't know what to joke about with me. They don't know what to say to me. And it's kind of weird because I'm normal. At least I think I am.
So they don't see you as a regular person.
No.
But do you think that some of it could come from the fact that they see who you are
Yep.
in God,
Yes.
and maybe they feel a level of respect for you that they may not have for others?
I think that may be the case because a lot of times, especially in the past few months, they really, when they found out like what I do and who I am, they kind of taken like the different approach to me. Like, they see me on TikTok and Instagram and all of this stuff. But when I'm done preaching, like I said, I'm just a normal kid.
Yeah. So do you get an opportunity to play sports with them or have those?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Okay.
I spent a lot of the winter in the past year playing basketball with my friends. Sometimes when we're not playing basketball, we play soccer. And I claim I'm the GOAT, but I'm not.
Okay.
I think I'm the best.
So that could be the reason. Maybe you whip up on them so bad in sports, they don't know how to take you.
They know that's the truth. You better recognize.
So other than people being able to be more comfortable with you in your age group, that's the only thing you would change about your trajectory?
Yeah, that was really the only thing I'll change.
Okay. So as a younger person in ministry, going through among friends that don't always understand, and you may have some young people who are in the same situation, how do you manage that? Like, what are some of the things that you have to remind yourself of as you're kind of going through? I'm sure one of those things is that you are different.
Yep.
You know, you're not like everybody else. You don't want to be exposed to what everybody else is exposed to. But how do you also kind of think through some of those things with the friends? I'm sure you don't take it personally.
No, I don't take it personally at all. One thing that I really put into perspective, my father told me this a long time ago because I was dealing with some stuff going on because of who I am, what I do. And my father told me this. He said, son, it's going to be a lonely walk. Not everybody is going to take you the same way. He said it's going to be a lonely walk, but in the end it's going to be worth it all. And I've really taken that into perspective, like realizing like it's going to be tough sometimes, you know. Not everybody is going to want to be a friend or want to be around you, but it's not going to last always. You got to think about what God thinks about you.
Yeah. And the fact that you have that lesson at this age will take you so much further because some people don't learn that well into their adult years.
Yeah.
So how has your family, and I hear a lot of talk about your parents and your grandparents and others in your family, how has their support been empowering to you in your ministry?
Well, it's as I said earlier, it really motivates me, you know, like to keep pushing. Like sometimes I don't understand things when I'm preaching, but having support of like my father, grandfather, especially my dad, he always like guides me. Like when we're going through things in sermons, not even when it just comes to like the preaching, but like just questions in general. Like when we go to school, or like when I'm on my way to school, that's like our time like to talk personally, not only about church and ministry, but to talk about stuff about just a young boy growing up. In ministry, my father has really helped me like take my time sometimes. Like sometimes I go a little too fast. He'll tell me like just calm down, let it come to you, don't do too much early in the beginning. But having their support has really, you know, has made me show that I have love in my family and that I have a lot of support.
So how and when did you know you were called to preach?
Well, it's always been around me and my family, but it was really when I was around 4 years old when I could hear like God speak to me. Like God would come to me in my sleep. He would use voices like Bishop C.H. Mason, Martin Luther King Jr. He would use these voices and they would inspire me. And by the time I was 4, I still remember I heard my grandfather preach a sermon one Sunday. And while he's preaching, I could hear the Lord kind of speak to me and like, this is your calling. And I'm watching him preach about believing in God, even when we go through things in our life that we don't want to go through. when he was preaching it, I could kind of hear the voice of God kind of like directing me, like, this is your calling right here.
And it was easy for you to understand it and accept it. And so from that, do you feel like you've had some external pressures at your age being in ministry?
Well, I don't have a lot of pressures. Just one pressure and struggle for me is not being the same, or I'm somewhat unique than everybody else. I can't always be in the same group that they're going. Like sometimes at my school, like they have these big things on the weekend. Everybody goes to the mall and stuff. And the fun thing is, a lot of them have been invited, but I'm one of the only ones that hasn't been invited. Probably because they find me, somewhat different than who they are. Because a lot of them, I can kind of see like they don't fully believe. Like they have parts of them that believe, but they are still, they're still work in progress. But for my pressures, and that's really like my main struggle. I just really go to God in prayer, like to get better with it, because I realize like not everybody's going to be like want to be my best friend or any of that. So I go to God in prayer. The Bible says, "Be not dismayed, whatever be tired. God will take care of you," and I rely on that, and I believe that. Yeah. So I believe that God will take care of me.
One of the things that I appreciate about hearing you speak about your pressures and challenges is that the pressures and challenges that you have are things that are good for you at your age. When I hear what some of our youth are being exposed to at their age, is really things that you have to be mature and an adult to navigate.
Yeah.
And listening to the things that you are dealing with really shows me how your parents are shielding you from things you don't need to be exposed to. Like the way the conversation is flowing. If these are your biggest challenges, you're doing good. Because at your age, there are people who have been dealing with drugs and sex and other things like that. Yeah. And the fact that, one of your biggest challenges is dealing with people who don't know how to handle your gift and your calling shows that they have really done a great job of protecting your childhood so that you're not exposed to things that you don't need to be exposed to. And you really, I know you are, but you really should be able to see the value in that, because there are a lot of children your age who don't have that same testimony.
Yeah.
So outside of external pressures, and you maintaining your youthfulness, how do you think that the things that you engage in help to keep you focused? Like you said, you engage in sports, which is great. You have other things that you like to do, like you like pizza, other, very childlike things. How do you feel like those things help to keep you focused so that you don't get involved in the other things? And here's why I'm asking. Because I think that there are a lot of children your age who don't know what they should get into, so they get into a lot of things they should not get into. And so with the things that you enjoy doing, how do they keep you away from the things you shouldn't be doing?
Well, I kind of had an idea of some stuff. Like when I read the word, the Bible, it kind of gives like a signal what to stay away from. Mm-hmm. Reading it kind of gave me an idea of some of the things to stay away from. So I kind of just stick to what I do. So what I do, instead of following, because sometimes the devil will send a lot of things in our minds to come for us and tempt us. And I've had a couple of times personally where I've had to rely on my own faith in God with what I do. Like, I'm not relying on my dad's faith, my mom's faith, nobody else's faith. I got to learn how to have it. I got to have my own faith in God. So I really just stick to what I do already, so I don't get caught up in other things. But I know that challenges are going to come as I get older, because it's a part of life. Challenges are a part of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Amen. God bless you. God keep you, my prayer.
So you recently celebrated your rites of passage in April. Tell me about the experience, what it meant to you, some of the highlights of the day, some of the things that on the other side of it are things that you'll remember forever.
Well, it was really important. First off, rites of passage for me was like a makeup christening. You know, when I was born, my parents kept saying that they were gonna have a christening for me, but they kept putting it off. It was like a makeup christening. The funny thing is about it, I have been planning it for a minute now because it's the big 13. I feel good about myself. I told my dad about it, and he actually thought it was a great idea.
Okay.
We already kind of discussed like who was going to be there, who was going to speak. Rites of Passage is a service when you celebrate a young man's maturing into a young boy, from turning into a young boy, and is now becoming a young adult. So he has all of the big influencers in his life. They come and speak over him. That was really what was occurring on the day. I had my grandfather there, my auntie, the Reverend Dr. Danielle Brown, Bishop Donald Hilliard, Bishop C. Wright, and so many others. Those are just to name a few who were there. It was really important for me to have it because of the fact that I wanted to share the day with as many young men of color as I possibly could who don't have a father figure like I do. You know, the world sees not just young black men, but young men of color around the world. The world sees them as a threat. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to spend the day with them to let them know that they are royal, they are chosen, they are God's people, and they have an anointing on their life. It don't matter what nobody else says. The devil is going to send things in their life to tempt them and make them feel weak. Be not dismayed. God will take care of you.
That's excellent. So there was a moment with you and my friend Danielle Brown, Dr. Brown. Tell me about that moment.
Well, my dad had already told me earlier that I was receiving a couple of gifts that day. I wasn't expecting what she gave me, though. The fun thing is about it, she was talking to me about education and about growing in my education. She announced that I got accepted into this very prestigious school, but what really surprised me about this was that she gifted me her doctorate graduation hat. And I understood it was personal and educational, but I was blown away because that's something you would expect to say for your children or your grandchildren. But for her to give me that really meant something to me.
But since my assignment was education, can you come here? And Dr. Brian, can you help me? I'm giving you today, that's what I thought about. And this is my doctoral tam. So you can put it on it. I'll let your uncle put it on you. This is my doctoral tam. And what I thought about was that if I gave you this, one is a statement today that we're not stopping at a bachelor's or master's. You shall be Dr. Hilton Rawls. But I wanted to remind you that you can achieve beyond the limitations that this world puts on you.
And that shows how much she has love and care for you.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something you can hold on to so that you can have it as a keepsake forever. So as you're moving in to this new era as a young adult on the other side of rites of passage, how important do you think that rites of passages are for people in your age group?
I think it's important just to celebrate them, to let them know they are loved. It don't have to be like just a Christian thing. It can be a national thing, like to celebrate young men who are moving. Like the Jewish culture has bar mitzvahs. All of the other traditions have something that celebrate them. So I wanted to create my own thing that will hopefully encourage other families, not just of different nationalities, but just different families in general, just to like help them and have their own celebration for their own selves.
That's excellent. So as you're moving forward in ministry from being, as you would say, a young boy to becoming into this place of being a young man, what are you looking forward to in ministry?
Well, I love flying to different cities. I love staying in all the different hotels, dinners, and all of that stuff. But the truth is, if I can't get just one more young person to see Jesus, then all of the ministering and the preaching I've done in the past few years, it's going to be in vain. I just want people to see Jesus. Dr. Martin Luther King said it best. He said, if I can help somebody, as I pass along, then my living not be in vain. I just want people to see Jesus at the end of the day. It don't matter to me how many followers I get on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, because the truth is, when you get to heaven, none of that matters.
Absolutely.
God ain't going to ask you, did you get 738 million followers? You can have 1 billion followers on Instagram. But if you ain't live right for God, you ain't living right at all.
That's absolutely true. So what advice would you give a young person who feels the call to ministry and maybe in a space where they don't understand it or are nervous about it, about how they can allow God to use them and surrender?
This is the season for new recruits. The church is in trouble and they need us. God is moving people out of the way so that we can step up. The Bible says in the book of Joel that in the last days, God will pour out his spirit upon all flesh. He says, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and your handmaidens shall prophesy. You don't need to be a theologian or some rocket scientist to realize that we are living in the last days. This is the season that God is calling the young people. And listen, maybe your calling is different than mine. Maybe you don't have to be a preacher. Maybe God is calling you maybe to be an artist, a singer, a composer, a writer for him. Whatever it is, use it for God's glory, and I guarantee you that God will bless you and bless your life.
All right, so here's how I'm going to close, and I do this with everybody who is on the podcast. So this is how I say it, and I did it with Dr. Brown, so you'll know it's true. Look into your camera, and I want you to give young people everywhere a piece of advice to live by as they go through the balance of this year.
Jesus is coming. You're never too young to be used by God. David was a little boy when he fought Goliath. Jesus was 12 years old when he said to his mother, I'm about my Father's business. But not only that, current day events. Stevie Wonder made his first album by 9 years old. God is using me at 13 years old, almost 14 years old. And if God can use me, then he can use you. It don't matter what nobody else says about you. Think about what God thinks. Love y'all.
Master Hilton Rawls, check him out and definitely keep up with him on all his social medias.
Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation with spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders. Candid conversation for spiritual teachers.
The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now.
Real and raw conversation.